colors of your skin. And it's how I hear the stars coming brightly. And it's how I'm falling in.
Well, my family history in Pozo goes back to my great-grandfather, who came here in 1919. They bought the ranch across the street where my grandparents lived all my life in November of 1919.
Well, it's cow-calf operation. They've been running cows here forever, for the 100 years. Different farmings, come and gone through my great-great-grandfather all the way to now. From hay, dry farmed a lot of crops, but always ran cattle.
Pozo is a hidden gem. We are off Highway 101. It takes about 20 minutes to get out here, and we are in the middle of nowhere. We stayed busy farming, doing our cattle work, and we've got our dogs, our friends and family. We're very close.
We got into the wine business. Took us a little while. They're planted off the road out behind everything because we didn't know anything about growing wine grapes.
We started our winery in 2004, and it's a project that my brother and I have together with our families. All hands on deck.
And it truly is a family operation. I drive the harvester, Michelle, my sister drives the gondolas, and my dad and my wife mogs the fruit, which means we're taking leaves and stuff that we don't want in the bins out before it gets to the crushing facility.
Between him and his sister, he had the skills to make the wine. She was available to do the paperwork and all the business, the business aspect of putting it all together, and it took off.
What was different about this winery is they actually are a family of cowboys, and it's kind of a lost legacy, and we were thinking we need to put cowboy in our label. And it's really hard for Michelle and I to get Ryan and Joey out of the roping arena to just come and make wine. You might have to learn how to drive the forklift.
Not a lot of cowboys drank wine. We weren't around a lot of people that drank a lot of wine. So when we did this and I started getting interested in the winemaking deal, I didn't have a lot of friends that drank wine. Since then, we've introduced it to a lot of cowboys, and more and more ranchers are starting to drink wine. It goes perfect with beef.
Production funding for American Grown, My Job Depends on Ag, provided by James G. Parker Insurance Associates, helping to protect and grow Valley agribusiness in California for over 40 years. By the Gar and Esther Titillion Charitable Foundation, a legacy of giving to support the people that make agriculture grow. Farms feed families, public television feeds minds. By Brandt, Professional Agriculture, supporting the heroes that work hard to feed a hungry world every day. By Unwired Broadband, today's internet for rural Central California, keeping Valley agriculture connected since 2003. By Harris Farms, a tradition of working forward to protect the future of water, ranches, and farms in California and beyond. And by Valley Air Conditioning and Repair, family-owned for a half-century, dedicated to supporting Valley agriculture and the families that grow our nation's food.
We've had an exceptional rainfall year, so the whole county's had it, so it's pretty anyway, but when you get 30 to 40 inches of rain, obviously the grass is tall and everything's green, and it's just a special place. Pozo's been here for a long time. It was way before my family got here. It was kind of a stopping off point for people on their way to town to put their livestock or their crops on the train, which came through Santa Margarita. A couple bars, hotel, blacksmith, grocery store, kind of a hopping place. People would stop off here, take usually a day by wagon to get here, and then another day to get to town, and then vice versa on their way back home if they were headed east. So Pozo kind of became the place to stop over, I guess, to take your goods to put them on the train.
My great-grandfather came here in 1919 because of that Pozo road that goes through Pozo was the only access to the Central Coast from the Central Valley at the time. And he thought he was going to make his fortune here in the interchange right here in Pozo, and did some subdivision, odds and ends, because you either went south to Arroyo Grande or you continued west to Cayucas, Cambria, Morro Bay. So that was his dream, but obviously over time that failed. He went broke in the Depression. My grandfather was the one that actually built the ranch into what we have today.
This was a valley that goes back, the written history, to the Spanish land grant days. And then it was kind of a bustling place in the late 1800s, early 1900s, because the wagon roads intersected here in the town of Pozo. So roads changed and history changed things, and it became just a quiet little town, almost a ghost town, almost. But the old Pozo Saloon remained in operation off and on through the many years. And today, I laugh and tell people the saloon looks exactly the way it did in the late 1800s. And the only difference is, instead of the parking lot being full of horses, it's full of vehicles now. But otherwise, it really is a step back in time.
So I traveled a lot horse vaulting, and so I was around horses all the time. And then growing up here, I rode and gathered cattle with my mom and dad, but I didn't really learn how to rope, brand calves until the end of high school. It's about 18 years old. Now it's one of my favorite things to do. I love doing ranch work, and we have cattle working dogs, which I love to watch them work. And so one of my favorite things to do now is gather the cattle, and anytime we can get horseback is one of my favorite times, and my kids love it and crave it. And so it's nice to be able to just go on a trail ride after school, go check the cows with my kids and watch them enjoy it as much as I do.
Debbie and I came back to Pozo in 1992 after 20 years of being gone, and we got involved in the family ranch and realized at the time that the cattle industry was not going to be enough economically to carry us. So we were looking at more intense farming, vegetables mainly. But when I contacted my friend Don Talley from the south side of the range that we're looking at here, he came up and told me to plant wine grapes, so we did. We put in 30 acres of wine grapes. Kids were in high school. I worked them like a good father does. And we got into the wine business. Took us a little while. They're planted off the road out behind everything because we didn't know anything about growing wine grapes, so we didn't want the public to look at us the whole time we were learning. So consequently, this is the spot.
We knew it was one of those things that the opportunity presents itself. You stay up all night talking about it, wondering if it's the right way to go. But once we made up our mind, and this had happened with us before over the years, we just decided failing was not an option, and we were going to make a go of things. What made it better, though, is once our children finished college and they were willing to take it a step further, that made all the difference in the world.
So the winemaking came about later. Never really crossed my mind in college. I took the enology classes because they were required for me at Cal Poly. It wasn't until I graduated and I was working in Paso Robles, doing some vineyard management there, and just kind of got in with a group of guys that were making wine and decided, I could do it. And it just took a little bit of convincing. I had to convince them, my mom and dad, that I could do it.
So my son in 2002 came and asked me about doing a wine. So I told him, okay, I'll give you 1 ton of Zinfandel grapes. He had a an assistant winemaker at a winery in Paso Robles area to help him. He'd finished college, he was in the industry doing labor management and vineyard management. They took the 1 ton of grapes and they made the wine. Well, we tasted a year later and it was pretty good, actually. When they bottled it, we ended up with, I don't know what we ended up with, 25, 27 cases. But that didn't last very long. It was good enough that we said, okay, let's do it. So he and his sister and us as the parents formed a wine company and started making wine in 2003 under the label Pozo Valley. But, you know, we were all doing other things and it was kind of hit and miss on how we were dealing with the wine. It took a little while for us to get up and running as a group. But, you know, that's been successful in the last 5-6 years. We did a label change in the late 2010, somewhere in there, 9. Didn't even produce a bottle in 08. And when we did that label change, things started to go the other way, go up, and they've continued.
People want to hear the authentic stories, and I think sometimes we're lacking that these days. And so for us to just tell truth about us and what we do, that's what people want to hear.
How long too you been roping together?
2009.
Yeah.
I kind of started roping again. He talked me into it, and we went to Cow Palace.
We went to, last minute deal. We drove. We had a concert here.
Yeah.
Drove up got up about 4 o'clock in the morning. Drove to the Cow Palace. Ended up winning and qualifying, and yeah, it was all she wrote from there.
How much now is it like having a dance partner in some ways?
Well,
I don't know.
we're kind of different that way. Ryan runs around with a lot of different dance partners. I kind of stick with my one dance partner. When I go to a big roping, I rope with him. And he goes to a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I'm a team roping floozy.
I've been in the wine industry for a little while, and what was different about this winery is they actually are a family of cowboys, and it's kind of a lost legacy. And we were thinking, we need to put cowboy in our label. And it's really hard for Michelle and I to get Ryan and Joey out of the roping arena to just come and make wine. You might have to learn how to drive the forklift eventually.
Yes, which I do, yes.
But so we decided that Vintage Cowboy kind of it showed who we are.
Obviously, that's another question always being asked is your family. So that doesn't always work out the way you want it to. You can't fire anybody when you get mad. So, so there's my husband and myself and Jessica and Joey and my parents. So at family meetings, business meetings, there are 6 of us that all are opinionated about what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And I think the dynamic that works for us is my brother's pretty laid back, where apparently people are telling me I'm not. And my sister-in-law is very creative. So she can see things marketing-wise that I cannot. So we work well together, I think, in the fact that we're very opposite that way. So I control, I do more like the bookwork and the licensing. We work together in the tasting room. Like I said, I love visiting with people and hear their stories, especially out here. It's very lonely out here.
It was a morning in June when I heard that tune falling up to the beat of your heart.
I pinch myself every day knowing that, so many people have to go somewhere to visit their grandchildren, and mine are in and out of my house every day, and I call the grandkids my exhaustive addiction because everything's so busy, but the minute it gets quiet, I want them all back again. So it is very rewarding, and maybe the most important thing to me as I get older is, you know, we were a generation that was part of this family legacy, and we were able to hold it all together, and to watch and know that our own children, adult children, appreciate that, and they appreciate raising their children in the same way is really special to us.
We're here 100 years this year, and I'm 5th generation out here. And one of my big goals, I have 2 nieces and 2 daughters, so we're raising girls out here, tough little cowgirls, and they also help in the vineyard. And my dream is that out of 4, at least 1 really wants to be out here. I know my 10-year-old wants to be a veterinarian, so we also could use that. So I'm not discouraging her and trying to keep her at the winery, so it'll be interesting to see where they choose to go.
We're getting close to harvest. I'll run all the tests, and you know, we're fortunate enough to farm our own grapes, so we can kind of get it pretty close to, you know, what we want. So it makes my job pretty easy.
What are you looking for?
Chemistry numbers, you know, pH, TA, the sugars, they all, you know, there's certain spots you'd like to see everything. The wine region's relatively unknown. There's obviously not a lot of vineyard out here. It is very similar in climate to some of the spots in Paso Robles, which makes it ideal. Obviously, we didn't realize that when we planted the grapes because we were just cowboys at the time, but you know, as things progressed, we started to figure out that you know, most years the weather out here is great and makes an exceptional flavorful wine, which we've you know, started making. People have started to notice it. We don't do a lot of advertisement, just kind of a valley people enjoy coming to, which in turn spreads. And you know, a few years in, people started to realize, well, shoot, there's a little winery out there, plus the saloon, and more and more people are coming out to see us. And you know, we're starting to get accolades for our wine, which helps. And people ask, well, where is that place? And once they get out here, everybody seems to love it. The only thing left here in Pozo from the old days is the old Pozo Saloon. And again, it's a pretty big draw for people to come out here. The restaurant still operates. They do a little bit of music. It's a great family, you know, day trip for people to come on. And when we built the winery, it just kind of enhanced the Pozo experience. So a lot of people come out here, go get lunch, come taste wine. You know, if you're not a wine drinker, you can go have a beer, and the kids can run around. It's a you know, just a really nice family experience for people.
Most people that come out here, well, we get a lot of locals that like to come out here with their kids, family, because they can run wild, you know, and enjoy the fields. But when we do get people from out of town, especially people that are from big cities, they can't believe it. It's like they've taken a step back into time, and they really enjoy it. And we have people that come out. It's pretty quiet out here, and they will sit at the winery and enjoy a glass of wine in silence while they look over hills, and it's very peaceful for them. And it's something they don't get when they're in town.
How's this guy as a brother-in-law?
He's good. He's real good. You know, I honestly couldn't ask for a better one. To be honest with you, I don't want to give him too much credit, but especially on camera. Now it's recorded. But no, it's my father-in-law that's the hard one to deal with. You know, he's, you know.
I agree with that.
Joey and I, you know, as long as we're in this roping arena and we got a cow between us, we get along just fine.
I would love to send every grape that's grown here straight to a vintage Cowboy winery, mostly because it's pretty easy. You don't have a lot of logistics to deal with. We're far enough away that you got to make sure you've got trucks arranged for if you're going out of the area. And you know, you can have no breakdowns. The way we're set up now, if our harvester breaks at midnight, we just shut it down and do it again the next day. If you're delivering to Lodi and your harvester breaks down, you're pretty much SOL.
You know, being so far out here, it's tough to get help. So a few years ago, we decided we were going to look into an old harvester that a friend of ours had, and we went and looked at it, decided it was you know, the right move to make as far as you know, not being able to get labor out here to help us really pick everything. And I taught myself how to run it, and we've been picking with that ever since. We have some gondolas, and it truly is a family operation. I drive the harvester, Michelle, my sister drives the gondolas, and my dad and my wife mogs the fruit, which means we're taking leaves and stuff that we don't want in the bins out before it gets to the crushing facility. So kind of what we're looking for is our acid levels, our pH levels, and our sugar kind of need to be in balance before we pick. So yeah, we'll come out here. We do have some field instruments that we'll use to test just for sugars out here in the field, so we know we're getting close. Once the sugars start to get close to where we want them to be, I will take a bucket, fill it up randomly throughout the blocks, and take it back to my lab, and then that's where I'll run the acid test and pH. You know, I'll run the tests, and when we see things are right, or you know, as close as we think we're going to be able to get them to right, then you know, take a couple days, get everything prepped and ready, and start picking.
Big day, right?
Good day.
What are we doing here?
Harvesting some grapes, some zin.
We're going to pull off about 15 ton of zin this morning.
15 ton. What percentage of your vineyard here is zin grapes?
We have 7 acres out of 32, so yeah,
right.
we already pulled some off earlier.
For the rosé.
Rosé all day.
Rosé all day.
I don't know what it is about this machine, but everybody that sees it pick likes the way it picks. The new ones have three fans on them, so you're pretty effective at keeping the mog out.
How old is that machine?
It's at least 60 years old, but the guts on it aren't that old. They're probably 20.
But,
People don't give you enough respect out here.
I know. I get the worst job ever. Lose my voice, everything.
I couldn't believe how hard you were working. We were impressed.
Thank you.
That's a lot. Do you tire out, or what's your secret for going so slow?
No, I just listen to Metallica and no, just kidding.
So one of the neat things about our story too is that this whole area, now known for wine, was always cattle ranching. So we're able to kind of bridge that gap. We still have an operation going while we have our vineyard, and we're in the wine business. So our bull field is at the winery, just right over the fence. So we have bulls that greet our wine tasters that are sitting out there, or we have cows turned out eating down the grass.
It's been a pleasure, actually, more fun than I let on about dealing with my kids as partners. And in the wine thing, we set them up as the controlling entity. So Debbie and I have the swing vote, which we own 20%, they each own 40%. So in some sense, I have a little bit of control if there's ever a disagreement. But for the most part, if they agree, then they have all the control. So there's a lot of satisfaction in knowing that this will go on. You've kind of, I don't want to say I've trapped them into staying here and staying in business, but maybe I did.
Production funding for American Grown, My Job Depends on Ag. Provided by James G. Parker Insurance Associates. Helping to protect and grow Valley agribusiness in California for over 40 years.
By the Gar and Esther Titilian Charitable Foundation, a legacy of giving to support the people that make agriculture grow.
Farms feed families, public television feeds minds. By Brandt, Professional Agriculture, supporting the heroes that work hard to feed a hungry world every day. By Unwired Broadband, today's internet for rural Central California, keeping Valley agriculture connected since 2003. By Harris Farms, a tradition of working forward to protect the future of water, ranches, and farms in California and beyond. And by Valley Air Conditioning and Repair, family-owned for a half-century, dedicated to supporting Valley agriculture and the families that grow our nation's food.